The whispers never left Lyra Nightshade, trailing her like shadows wherever she went. More constant than any friend she had ever known, weak, broken, useless. Those words echoed relentlessly through the halls of the Shadow Moonpack house, like a curse carved into the very air, marking her as the Omega who could never contribute anything of value. At 21, Lyra had spent her whole life under the crushing weight of her own frailty. Born with a condition that left her bones delicate and her muscles weak. She couldn't run with the pack on hunts, couldn't fight in territorial disputes, couldn't even handle the simplest physical tasks that other Omegas completed without thought. She was a burden, a mouth to feed that gave nothing back, and everyone made sure she remembered it. "Out of the way, Lyra!" Beta Marcus growled, shoving past her in the narrow hallway and nearly knocking her off balance. "Some of us have actual work to do." Lyra pressed herself against the wall, eyes lowered, cheeks burning with the familiar sting of humiliation. There was no point in answering, no point in defending herself. She had learned long ago that resistance only made things worse. The safest way for someone like her was to shrink, to disappear as much as possible. The Shadow Moonpack tolerated her only because of Pac Law. No wolf could be abandoned or killed without cause, and physical weakness wasn't technically a crime. But tolerance was far from acceptance, and Lyra had long since stopped hoping she would ever truly belong anywhere. Heading toward the kitchens, the only place her body could manage, she set about peeling vegetables, washing dishes, and organizing supplies. The hum of excited voices drifted down the hall, carrying a buzz of anticipation. The pack was gathering in the main hall for an announcement, and the energy in the air made it clear it was something important. "Have you heard?" a young female whispered, voice high with excitement. "The Alpha King himself is coming to visit. He's touring all the major packs looking for something. Some say he's searching for a mate. Others think he's investigating rumors of dark magic in the territories. Whatever it is, we need to make a good impression." Another voice chimed in, filled with eager anticipation. "This could be our chance to strengthen ties with the royal pack, maybe even secure trade agreements or protection treaties." Lyra felt her stomach twist at the thought. The Alpha King was coming to their small, unremarkable pack, which meant inspection, evaluation, and every effort the Shadow Moon Wolves would make to prove their strength and worth. For someone like her, it meant becoming even more invisible than usual. Alpha King Kale Stormborn was legendary among their kind, spoken of in tones that mixed awe with fear. He had ruled for over 2 centuries, maintaining peace with a combination of sharp strategy and overwhelming power. Stories claimed he could shift into his wolf form at a mere thought, command submission from any wolf regardless of rank, and had once defeated an entire rebel pack alone. The idea of someone like him noticing someone like her made Lyra want to vanish completely. She could already picture his disdain at encountering such a defective member of the species, the disappointment in his eyes when he realized the Shadow Moonpack harbored such weakness. "Lyra," the sharp, commanding voice of the pack's head Omega, Mistress Helena, cut through her spiraling thoughts. "Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you." "I'm sorry, Mistress. I was just heading to the kitchens to—" "Never mind that now. The Alpha King arrives within the hour, and I need every available hand helping with preparations." Helena's expression was laced with obvious distaste. "Even yours. Useless as it may be. Go to the storage rooms and fetch the good linens, and for Moon's sake, try not to drop or break anything. We can't afford to appear incompetent in front of royalty." Lyra nodded quickly, her heart hammering with anxiety, and hurried toward the storage area. The storage rooms were in the basement, down 2 flights of stairs that always left her breathless and aching. She had learned to push through the pain, to ignore the way her joints protested and her muscles trembled with the effort. The basement was cool and dim, lit only by sparsely spaced bulbs that cast long shadows between the shelving units. Lyra moved cautiously, searching for the trunk holding the formal linens. The Shadow Moon Pack rarely used their finest materials, keeping everything preserved with spells that maintained freshness even after years of storage. She had just found the correct trunk, and was struggling with its heavy lid when a strange, unsettling sensation washed over her. It began as a tingling at the base of her skull, spreading through her body like warm honey, making her gasp in surprise. The sensation was both familiar and strange, like recalling a long-forgotten childhood dream. Without thinking, Lyra found herself humming. The melody that rose from her throat was ancient and haunting, carrying notes that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. Music had always been her solace, a quiet refuge when she was alone. But this was different. This was power. The air around her shimmered faintly, dust motes dancing in impossible patterns. Shadows in the corners leaned closer, drawn to her voice like moths to flame. Deep within her chest, something dormant stirred to life, awakening with an intensity she had never known. "What are you doing down here?" The sharp voice shattered her concentration, and the strange sensations vanished instantly. Lyra spun to see Beta Marcus at the bottom of the stairs, his expression suspicious and hard. "Mistress Helena sent me to fetch the formal linens," she stammered, her voice returning to its usual quiet timbre. "For the Alpha King's visit." Marcus's eyes narrowed as he studied her, nostrils flaring as if searching for something in her scent. "Were you singing just now?" I was just humming to myself. Sorry if I disturbed you." He didn't seem convinced, but after a tense moment he jerked his head toward the trunk. "Well, hurry up then. The Alpha King's caravan has been spotted approaching. Everyone needs to be in position within 15 minutes." As Marcus disappeared back up the stairs, Lyra let out a shaky breath, trying to calm her racing heart. That strange feeling, the surge of power when she sang, what was it? She had hummed and sung alone for years, seeking comfort in music when life was harsh and painful. But nothing had ever felt like this before. Setting the questions aside for later, Lyra lifted several sets of formal linens from the trunk and began the slow, laborious trek back to the main floor. By the time she reached the top of the second flight of stairs, her legs trembled with exhaustion, and each breath came in short, sharp gasps. "There you are!" Mistress Helena snapped, seizing the linens from her arms without a word of thanks. "You took forever. The Alpha King's caravan is pulling through the gates right now. Get to the kitchens and stay there. I don't want him seeing you and getting the wrong impression about our pack." The dismissal was expected, but it still stung. Lyra obeyed, moving toward the kitchens and taking up a position near the back entrance, where she could carry out her duties without being noticed by any important visitors. Through the narrow window above the washing station, she caught glimpses of the main courtyard. Pack members were assembling in precise ranks, preparing to greet their distinguished guest. The Alpha King's arrival brought a sudden hush over the compound, as if even the wind itself held its breath in anticipation. From her limited vantage point, Lyra could only see fragments of the royal procession, luxury vehicles, impeccably dressed guards, and at the center, a figure whose presence seemed to pull all light toward him, like a living black hole. Even from a distance, even through a small window, the power radiating from Alpha King Kale was undeniable. It was like standing near a bonfire, feeling the heat and energy without seeing the flames directly. Her Omega instincts recognized his alpha dominance so intensely that her knees weakened, forcing her to grip the edge of the sink for support. The formal greetings and speeches stretched on, long enough for Lyra to wash a full load of dishes and begin organizing the pantry. She focused on her tasks, but she couldn't ignore the Alpha King's presence. He moved through their territory like a storm front. Impossible to ignore, even without looking directly at him. "All pack members are to assemble in the Great Hall immediately. The Alpha King wishes to address us all," came the announcement through the pack link, the mental connection that bound every Shadow Moon Pack member. Lyra's stomach clenched with dread. An assembly meant she would be visible, forced to stand among her packmates while their weaknesses and failures were laid bare for royal scrutiny. But disobeying a direct order wasn't an option. She dried her hands and made her way reluctantly to the great hall. The space was already packed with wolves of every rank, pressed together in a show of unity and strength. Lyra slipped in through a side entrance, finding a spot in the very back corner behind a support pillar that partially shielded her from view. From there, she could see the raised platform at the front of the hall, where Alpha King Kale stood alongside the Shadow Moon Pack leadership. This was the first time Lyra had ever seen him clearly, and the sight stole what little breath she had left. The Alpha King was tall and powerfully built, with dark hair brushing his shoulders and eyes that shifted between gold and amber with the changing light. His formal attire somehow managed to look both regal and dangerous, and the way he carried himself radiated absolute confidence, the kind born from centuries of unquestioned authority. But it wasn't just his appearance that held her. It was the way he moved, the way he watched everything around him with the sharp, assessing intensity of a predator. Her wolf reacted instinctively, sitting up with alert attention in a way she had never experienced before. Wolves of the Shadow Moon Pack. His voice traveled effortlessly through the packed hall, rich and commanding, pulling every wolf straighter without conscious thought. I thank you for your hospitality and for gathering on such short notice. My purpose in visiting your territory is twofold. First, I am investigating reports of unusual magical activity in this region. Dark forces that have been dormant for centuries are beginning to stir, and I must ensure all packs under my protection are aware and prepared. A wave of uneasy murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dark magic belonged to old stories and ancient warnings, nothing anyone expected to hear mentioned by a king in the present day. Second, the Alpha King continued, his golden eyes sweeping the room with an intensity that made Lyra press herself even tighter behind the pillar. I am searching for something specific. An ancient prophecy speaks of a power that will be needed in the coming darkness, a gift long hidden or forgotten, one that must be found and awakened before it's too late. What kind of power, Your Majesty? Alpha Raymond asked quickly, eager to seize any opportunity that might bring honor to his pack. The prophecy lacks clear details, Kale said, but it speaks of a voice capable of moving heaven and earth, songs that can heal or harm, music that bridges the physical world and the realm of pure spirit. In ancient times, such gifts were called siren abilities, though most modern wolves consider them myths. Lyra felt her blood turn to ice, a voice that can move heaven and earth, songs that can heal or harm. The strange sensations she had felt in the basement, the shimmering air, the stirring inside her chest, suddenly took on a frightening new meaning. I assure you, Your Majesty, Alpha Raymond said quickly, if any member of our pack possessed such abilities, we would know about it. Alpha Raymond said with absolute confidence, we keep careful records of all special talents and abilities. There's nothing like what you're describing here. Perhaps, Kale said thoughtfully, his gaze sweeping over the assembled wolves as if searching for something only he could perceive. Or perhaps the gift has been dormant, waiting for the right circumstances to awaken. I would like to interview each of your pack members individually, if you'll permit it. Though politely phrased, everyone knew it was not a true request. And Alpha King did not ask permission. He stated what would happen. The interviews were held in Alpha Raymond's office, with each pack member called in order of rank. Alphas and Betas went first, followed by regular members, and finally, the Omegas. By the time they reached the lowest-ranking Omegas, several hours had passed, and Lyra was trembling from exhaustion after standing so long in the crowded hall. Lyra Nightshade, Mistress Helena called, her tone heavy with reluctance. You're next. Every eye in the hall turned toward her as she stepped from behind the pillar, and Lyra felt the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on her shoulders. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor, painfully aware of the whispers trailing in her wake. "That's the weak one," someone murmured. "Can barely walk without getting winded. Why is the Alpha King wasting time on her? She doesn't have any special abilities. She barely survives day to day." When Lyra reached the office, the door was open, and she paused for a moment in the doorway, catching her breath and gathering what little courage she had. Alpha King Kale sat behind the desk, reviewing notes on a tablet, but looked up immediately as she appeared. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to tilt sideways. That same strange tingling she had felt in the basement surged through her again, magnified 100-fold. It coursed through her body like wildfire, igniting every nerve ending and making her gasp. The Alpha King's expression shifted, his eyes widening in what looked like recognition or surprise. For several heartbeats, they simply stared at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Something fundamental, defying logic. "Come in," he said finally, his voice deeper and rougher than before. "Close the door behind you." Lyra obeyed, legs shaking, moving carefully into the office and easing the door shut. Suddenly, the large room felt small and intimate. She kept her eyes lowered, as she had been taught, not daring to meet him again. "Your name is Lyra Nightshade." "Yes, Your Majesty," she replied quietly. "And you're an Omega in this pack?" "Yes, Your Majesty." He was silent for a moment, and Lyra could feel the weight of his gaze studying her, sharp and penetrating, making her skin prickle with awareness. "You're very quiet," he said finally. "The others I've interviewed today have been eager to talk, to prove themselves worthy of my attention. But you seem almost afraid to be here." "I apologize if I've offended you, Your Majesty. I mean no disrespect." "You haven't offended me. I'm simply curious." She heard his footsteps as he stood, approaching until she could smell the complex layers of his alpha scent, pine and leather, and something reminiscent of a storm just before it breaks. "Look at me, Lyra." The command was gentle, yet absolute, impossible to disobey. Slowly she raised her eyes, meeting his, and again felt that strange rush of recognition and power that made her head spin. "Tell me about yourself," he said softly. "What do you do for the Shadow Moon Pack? What are your strengths? Your talents?" The questions were standard, likely asked of every wolf he had interviewed, but coming from him, fixed on her with those impossibly golden eyes, they carried weight she could not describe. "I work in the kitchens, Your Majesty, washing dishes, preparing vegetables, organizing supplies. I'm not strong enough for more physical labor." "Not strong enough physically," he repeated thoughtfully. "What about other kinds of strength? Mental? Emotional? Spiritual?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her about non-physical strengths before, or even considered that she might have value beyond manual labor. I don't know, Your Majesty. I've never really thought about it." "Do you have any hobbies? Things you do for enjoyment when you're not working?" She hesitated, unsure if the truth would sound ridiculous. "I sing sometimes, when I'm alone. Music. It's always brought me comfort." The moment the words left her mouth, the air in the room shifted. The Alpha King's body went still in that predatory way wolves did when they caught the scent of prey, and his eyes seemed to glow with inner fire. "You sing," he repeated, his voice carefully neutral. "How often? In what circumstances?" "Just whenever I'm alone and feeling sad or overwhelmed. It helps calm my mind, gives me something to focus on besides the pain." She realized too late that admitting her chronic pain probably made her seem even weaker than her reputation suggested. "I'm sorry. I know it's not particularly useful. I should focus more on my actual duties instead of sing for me." The command cut through her rambling apology like a blade, simple, direct, and impossible to misunderstand. Lyra's eyes widened in shock as she absorbed what he was asking. "Your Majesty, sing for me," he repeated, stepping closer until barely a foot of space remained between them. "Right now. Whatever song comes naturally to you." I, I'm not very good, and I don't think it would be appropriate to. That wasn't a request, Lyra. This time, his voice carried the full weight of Alpha Command, making her Omega instincts snap to attention. "Sing for me. Now." There was no possibility of refusal. Not from the Alpha King. Not without consequences she didn't dare imagine. Lyra drew in a shaky breath, her mind scrambling for a song. Panic made everything blur until finally one melody surfaced. A lullaby her mother used to sing before she died. She opened her mouth and began. The first notes wavered with nerves, soft and fragile. The lullaby was simple, its words ancient, spoken in a tongue most wolves had forgotten. But as she continued, something deep within her stirred. The same force that had awakened in the basement now surged through her with terrifying intensity, stealing her breath between lines. Her voice grew stronger, richer, resonances blooming in her tone that no human throat should have been capable of producing. The air around them shimmered, vibrating in time with her song, as though reality itself leaned closer to listen. Through the office walls she heard chaos in the great hall. Wolves gasping, furniture scraping, bodies shifting as if pulled by unseen currents. The entire building seemed to hum with the frequency of her voice. But Lyra couldn't look away from Cale. What she saw in his face sent a tremor through her body. Fear, awe, exhilaration all tangled together. His eyes were molten gold, his wolf pressed fully against the surface. Yet unlike the others who were clearly falling under her song's spell, he remained utterly in control. He watched her with a look that felt ancient, reverent, like he was finally seeing something he had spent his whole life searching for. She made it through 3 full verses before her voice cracked, the power overwhelming her. As soon as she stopped singing, the shimmering air faded. The sounds of confusion outside slowly quieted. And then there was only the two of them, breathing hard, staring at each other in disbelief. Lyra trembled, her body weak, her mind reeling. That power, that impossible, unimaginable power. It had been inside her all this time. By the moon goddess. Cale breathed as he reached out, catching her before her knees gave way. "You're a siren. A true, fully manifested siren." He looked at her like she was a miracle. "I can't believe it. After all this time, all these years of searching, you were here all along." I don't understand," Lyra whispered, letting him guide her into a chair before her legs finally gave out. "What just happened? What did I do?" "You awakened a gift that hasn't existed in over 500 years, he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Siren abilities were once common among our kind, but they faded as wolves became more focused on physical strength and battle prowess. Most modern wolves don't even believe they were real." "But what does it mean?" she asked, bewildered. "What can I even do with this power?" Cale lowered himself to a crouch so their eyes were level, his gaze intense and unwavering. "Based on what I just witnessed," he said slowly, "your voice can influence emotions, compel obedience even from strong-willed alphas, heal physical and spiritual wounds, and potentially much more once you learn control. In the wrong hands, such a gift could be catastrophic. In the right hands," his eyes softened, "it could save us all." The words hit her like a storm. Lyra, who had spent her entire life being dismissed as weak, fragile, worthless, apparently carried one of the rarest, most powerful abilities their species had ever known. "Why me?" she breathed. Why would something so powerful show up in someone like me? I can barely function as a normal wolf. Kale's expression gentled, something warm and understanding flickering in his eyes. Because true power has never come from physical strength, he said. The moon goddess gives gifts based on what the soul can bear, not what society values. Your physical weakness may have protected this gift, shielded it, kept it hidden until the right moment. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Alpha Raymond pushed it open without waiting for permission, his face twisted with confusion and unease. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion, but there's been some kind of incident. Half the pack was affected by something. They're reporting euphoria, visions, compulsions to dance or cry or confess secrets. We don't know what caused it, but we've contained it. Kale stood smoothly, his voice calm and authoritative. The incident was a test, he said, a measure of the pack's sensitivity to certain forms of magical influence. Nothing more. Raymond looked unconvinced, but he didn't dare question the Alpha King. His gaze flicked to Lyra, still shaking in the chair, and irritation tightened his features. Was there anything else you needed from this one, Your Majesty? He asked stiffly. She's useless for most purposes, but I suppose even a broken Omega has to be interviewed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees as Kale turned the full weight of his alpha presence on the Shadow Moon Leader. When he spoke, his voice carried a warning so sharp, so commanding, that even Lyra's wolf shrank instinctively. You will speak of her with respect, Raymond. This broken Omega, as you so foolishly called her, is worth more than your entire pack combined. She carries a gift invaluable to our entire species, and from this moment forward, she is under my personal protection. Raymond's face, drained of color as realization struck him like a blow. Your Majesty, I had no idea. If she has abilities we weren't aware of. She does, Kale snapped, and the fact that you never bothered to look past her physical limitations tells me everything I need to know about your leadership. His words cut through the room like a blade. Lyra will leave with me when I depart tomorrow morning. Consider this my official notice of pack transfer. The declaration hit Lyra like a physical shock. Leaving the Shadow Moon pack? Going with the Alpha King? Her thoughts spun wildly, unable to settle. Oh, of course, Your Majesty, Raymond stammered, scrambling to recover even a shred of dignity. Whatever you believe is best. We're honored that one of our members will serve the royal pack. Get out. The command wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Raymond fled instantly. When the door clicked shut, Kale turned back to Lyra, his expression melting into something far gentler than the icy fury he'd shown moments before. I apologize if I overstepped, he said softly. I should have asked whether you wanted to leave instead of announcing it. But Lyra, I meant every word. You have a gift that could be vital in the days to come. You need proper training and protection, things this pack has never offered you. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. Her head felt too full, her thoughts tumbling over each other. This morning I was just a kitchen worker, someone everyone pitied or ignored, and now you're telling me I have some legendary power and that you want me to join the royal pack? I know it's overwhelming, he murmured. We'll take it slowly, I promise. But then he hesitated, something uncharacteristically uncertain flickering in his gaze. There's something else you need to know. He drew in a measured breath. When you sang, when your power fully awakened, I felt something more than recognition. His golden eyes locked onto hers, fierce and luminous. The mate bond, Lyra. I felt it form between us. Lyra's breath caught. You're not just a siren with a rare gift. You're my destined partner. The other half of my soul I've been searching for 2 centuries. The revelation should have stunned her more than anything else that day. But somehow, deep inside, It didn't feel surprising at all. It felt almost inevitable. That strange connection she'd felt from the very first moment their eyes met. The spark, the pull, the unexplainable certainty suddenly made perfect sense. Her power responding to him, the way the air around them shifted with a quiet inevitability. Of course it was the mate bond. That's impossible, she whispered, even as her wolf practically howled with joy at the truth. I'm just a broken omega from a small pack. You're the Alpha King. How could we possibly be mates? The moon goddess doesn't care about rank or status, Kale said softly as he stepped closer, taking her hands with a tenderness that made her heart twist. She pairs souls that complete one another, that strengthen each other. And Lyra, from the moment I saw you, from the moment I heard your voice, I knew you were what I've been missing all these years. Tears welled in her eyes, stinging hot and sudden. A lifetime of being treated as worthless. A lifetime of believing she would never be wanted, never be chosen. And now the most powerful wolf in existence stood before her and called her his destiny. I'm scared, she confessed, her voice barely more than a tremor. I don't know how to be a siren. I don't know how to be a royal mate. I don't know if I'm strong enough for any of this. You're stronger than you think, he told her, gently stroking the backs of her hands with his thumbs. Your body may be fragile, but your spirit? Lyra, it's unbreakable. You survived years of neglect, years of being overlooked. And still, you held on to kindness. You still found beauty in music. That kind of strength is rare, more rare than any warrior's strength. Something inside her cracked open, years of pain, loneliness, and desperate longing spilling free. Before she knew it, she was in his arms, sobbing quietly against his chest. Kale held her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, whispering reassurances in the old tongue, soft lyrical words that soothed her battered heart. You're safe now, he murmured. You're valued. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Her tears slowed. Exhaustion crept in, heavy and warm, and she allowed herself to lean fully into him. For the first time in her life, she felt protected, wanted, home. What happens now? She asked in a small, tired voice. Now we rest, he replied. Tomorrow, we travel to the royal territory. You'll meet my pack and begin your training, as a siren and as a future queen. The words made her breath hitch, but he continued gently. It won't be easy. Mastering your abilities takes time and patience, and there will be challenges as others learn of our bond. Politics, expectations, all of it. He lifted her chin just enough so she could see the absolute certainty in his golden eyes. But Lyra, I promise you this. His voice dropped to a vow. I will never let anyone make you feel weak or worthless again. Your value has never come from physical strength. It comes from your heart, your spirit, and the incredible gift you carry. That night, as Lyra lay in bed trying to process everything that had happened, she found herself humming softly to herself. The melody that came out was new, one she had never heard before, yet it felt ancient, powerful, woven into her very soul. As she sang under her breath, she sensed the entire pack slipping into a peaceful, dream-soft sleep, all of them unknowingly soothed by the gentle lullaby she was creating. This was her power. This was her gift. And tomorrow, she would begin learning how to use it, not just to calm, not just to comfort, but to heal, to protect, and perhaps to change the world. The weak Omega they had all ignored, pitied, and dismissed was about to become one of the most significant wolves in history. And it had all started with two simple words from an Alpha King who had looked past her frail body to the strength burning quietly inside her. Sing for me. The command that had awakened her truth. that had shifted the path of her destiny, that had brought her face to face with the mate she never believed she could have. As sleep finally pulled her under, Lyra allowed herself to smile, soft, hopeful, radiant. For the first time in her life, she let herself dream of the future, a future filled with music and magic, with power and purpose, with love and belonging, everything she had never dared to hope for. Now finally within reach, because someone had taken the time to see her, truly see her. She wasn't broken. She had never been broken. She was exactly what she was meant to be, a siren, a mate, a queen in the making, and her song was only just beginning.